wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name, check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change, possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints, money, clout, and
Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am making some boxing gloves. It's kind of a weird thing to just out of the blue decide to make, but I was thumbing through Facebook and a couple of other things, and a lot of MMA stuff was kind of showing up, and I was like, hey, it'd be kind of neat to just make some boxing gloves out of EVA foam. Why not? Let's get to building. Let me start by saying I know how ridiculous this seems. It would be way more practical to just buy boxing gloves and custom paint them. Sometimes I just get it in my head to build something and I want to make it. There are some games that maybe this could be applicable to because they have maybe like nails or other things attached to them that would be less practical putting them on a real boxing glove, and they may make it a little more con friendly. So I traced my pattern onto some 10mm and 6mm EVA foam. I was super surprised to make the main body out of just one kind of whole piece, which was nice, and kept it simple. Once the pattern is traced, I cut out the foam with a sharp hobby knife. I like to cut my pieces into more manageable blocks so that I can freely move it on my workspace. I made my pattern using duct tape and foil, modeling it after some older style boxing gloves. $10mm foam is pretty thick and a lot less forgiving than other foam, so I really need to heat form the fist area real good before the glue up. Find a round object to push the heated foam over or into. I like using a glass dome off my back porch light. It's kind of that perfect shape for me, but you could use similar things and get similar results from like pushing it into a bowl or even shaping it just in your hands. As the foam cools down, it retains the curves you introduced from your object. I added contact cement to the edges, gave it a couple of minutes, and then tacked it all together. I didn't wait long enough, so you can see in a couple of spots I have a little bit of separation on my seam lines. To combat the gaps, I used super glue to bring it to its outer edge. This 10mm really wanted to fight me, closing up in a lot of spots, but I subdued it after a few minutes of pushing it back together. I start with the large V-shaped darts, then using my U-shaped registration marks, I work my way around the piece to close it all up. My palm and my inside of my thumb are using some 6mm foam, which is a lot more moldable to the contours. I start by attaching the thumb to the palm and then to the main assembly. Much like the main body seams, it took a little bit of finesse touch to get the parts to stick. I tried to leave a 3 or 4mm recess from the main body as I worked my way around the glove. I was filling the inside of it, trying to make sure that it was close to flush to get it within the ballpark. I had to reapply a little glue in an area because I accidentally let it sit for too long. The edge that I have is now going to get rounded over with a sanding drum and then smoothed over with a stone bit. I then took a smaller stone bit and tried to mimic the divoted areas around the seam line of a real set of boxing gloves. The complex shape in leather or synthetic materials causes the fabric to kind of bunch up around the seam line. I try to copy this by sanding in some grooves where my two thicknesses of foam meet. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while sanding foam. You don't want to breathe in the particles. To finish off the look of my boxing gloves, I needed to add the wrist wrap. Mine will serve no other function than decorative purposes. If you wanted to make it look like an older set of gloves, you could leave these two pieces off and put eyelets with laces on the underside. I marked where the strip would lay on my glove and then apply contact cement to both pieces. Once on, I superglued the label onto the center on the top of the wrist wrap. For one last little detail, I burned in some faux stitches with my wood burner around the label and the thumb. Definitely wear a respirator when burning foam. The fumes off of the foam when burning are pretty nasty. Once done, I coated my gloves with 3 layers of Mod Podge to help fill any gaps and to smooth over the sanded areas of my foam. I actually hit it with 3 layers of red Plasti Dip, as this will also act as the base layer of my color. These things turned out pretty solid. Seam lines are still present, but that extra layer of glue followed up by Mod Podge hid them pretty well. Now I am going to hand paint the label white and the strap black with some acrylic paint. It took about 3 layers of the white so that no red was shining through. The black only took 1 coat. My initial intention was to hand paint on a cool design over the top of the gloves, but as it is currently past 8 o'clock the night before this video is going to have to be put out, and I still have editing to do and go to work in the morning, I thought it would be cool to decoupage some legends onto the gloves instead. Kind of a quicker solution to adding a detail. So I found some images of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali in their prime, printed them out on some cardstock, and then glued them on with Mod Podge. Once I had them attached, I ended up coating the entire gloves in another 2 layers of glue to seal it all up. With a bunch of empty space, I thought it was only fitting to look for inspirational quotes from both these amazing fighters. I wrote them in with a dark green, then went over it a second time once it was dry with a smaller green paint pen. When the lettering was done, I covered it all with another layer of Mod Podge. Frazier's quote is, "Champions aren't made in the ring, they're merely recognized there. What you cheat on in the early light of morning will show up in the ring under the bright light." For Ali, I had to go with "float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. His hands can't hit what his eyes can't see." Both these quotes I thought were pretty fitting for the fighters. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I think they turned out pretty good. Very impractical, but of course, everything doesn't always have to make sense, like half the stuff I make. I decided on putting 2 boxing legends on there just for funsies to decorate it a little bit because it looked kind of plain after just painting them red. But yeah. Maybe you will try and make some of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to make some boxing gloves that you can then lightly tap on people or just set on a shelf for decoration. Let's be real. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some. Yay! And inevitably, they're going to ask you, "How'd you make that?" You can give them one of these. Tell them, "Much props." I mean, they're boxing gloves, so you know it's got to be a little bit of... All right, here we go. Bob and weave, bob and weave. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.